In the shadowed annals of history, there exists a figure both feared and revered, a man whose name echoes through the centuries like a chilling whisper on the wind. His story is one of blood-soaked intrigue, of power and cruelty, of myth and reality. Brace yourselves, for we delve into the enigma of Vlad the Impaler, the real-life Dracula. Introduction: The Unholy Birth. Did you know that the legend of Dracula was not merely a creation of Bram Stoker's imagination? No, it was forged in the crucible of a tumultuous era, where empires clashed, and blood flowed freely. Our tale begins in the heart of Transylvania, amidst the craggy peaks and ancient forests. Here, in the year 1431, a child was born, a child destined to etch his name in the annals of horror. Chapter 0: The Blood Feast. Legend whispers that Vlad the Impaler reveled in his gruesome feasts. Picture it, a banquet hall adorned with impaled corpses, their eyes wide with terror. Vlad, clad in crimson, dipped his bread into their blood as if savoring fine wine. His courtiers, half awed, half horrified, watched their ruler dine among the damned. Was it madness or malevolence that drove him? Perhaps both. The beheading of Vladislav. On the battlefield, Vlad personally beheaded his rival, Vladislav. The crimson arc of the blade, the spray of warm blood, it was a dance of death. Some say this act marked his transformation into Vlad III, the original Romanian for Vlad the Impaler. His family's horrific deaths fueled a thirst for vengeance, and he wielded his sword like a reaper. The pact with the shadows. But there's more, a darker pact. Whispers echo through the Carpathian forests. Vlad communed with spirits, struck unholy bargains. Was he a puppet of the supernatural, strings pulled by unseen hands? Or did he master the art of terror, weaving his own legend? The truth lies in the fog of time, where myth and history entwine. Chapter 1: Bloodlines and Betrayal. Vlad III, commonly known as Vlad the Impaler, emerged from the lineage of the Draculesti dynasty. His father, Vlad II Dracul, had earned his moniker, Dracul, meaning dragon, as a member of the Order of the Dragon, sworn to defend Christendom against the Ottoman Empire. But little did he know that his legacy would cast a long, twisted shadow over the land. Chapter 2: Hostage of the Ottomans. In 1442, young Vlad and his brother Radu found themselves as pawns in a deadly game. Held hostage by the Ottomans, their father's loyalty was the currency that secured their lives. But fate is a cruel mistress. Vlad's elder brother, Mircea, and their father fell victim to the machinations of John Hunyadi, the regent governor of Hungary. Their blood stained the earth, and Vlad's path was forever altered. Let's delve into the shadowed corridors of the Ottoman court, where young Vlad III, later known as Vlad the Impaler, spent his formative years. Vlad's captivity, a web of intrigue. At the tender age of 11, Vlad found himself ensnared in the political machinations of the Ottoman Empire. His father, Vlad II Dracul, had pledged loyalty to Sultan Murad II, and as a guarantee of compliance, young Vlad was sent to the heart of the empire. Within the opulent walls of the Topkapi Palace, he witnessed both splendor and brutality, the juxtaposition of silk-clad nobles and the clang of swords in the training yards. The art of survival. Vlad adapted swiftly. He learned the language, the customs, and the subtle dance of power. His captors, Ottoman officials and courtiers, watched him closely. Was he a mere pawn, a fragile hostage? Or did he harbor secrets, hidden intentions? Vlad's survival depended on mastering this treacherous game. He observed the Sultan's court, the whispers in the harem, the veiled threats in the council chambers. And in those shadowed halls, he honed the skills that would shape his destiny: cunning, resilience, and an unyielding will. Thus, the young prince navigated the labyrinthine court, his gaze ever watchful, his mind sharpened by captivity. Little did they know that within this gilded cage, a darker force stirred, a force that would echo through history as Vlad the Impaler. Chapter 3: The Impaler Rises. Vlad returned to Wallachia, his homeland, in 1448. His enemies, boyars and rival factions, stood in his way. But Vlad was no ordinary ruler. His methods were as brutal as they were effective. Impalement became his signature, the gruesome act of skewering victims on stakes, leaving them to writhe in agony. The name, Vlad the Impaler, echoed across Europe, a harbinger of terror. Chapter 4. The Dance with Death. As the Ottoman threat loomed, Vlad danced on the precipice of madness. He defied the Sultan, impaling envoys and daring the wrath of Mehmed II. In 1462, he unleashed a massacre. Tens of thousands of Turks and Muslim Bulgarians met their end. But darkness begets darkness. His younger brother, Radu, now favored by the Ottomans, sought to unseat him. Chapter 5. The Eternal Enigma. And so, the real Dracula, Vlad the Impaler, straddled the realms of myth and reality. Was he a hero defending Christendom or a monster reveling in cruelty? Perhaps both. His legacy endures, etched in blood and fear. Legends are rarely black and white. They are crimson, dripping with secrets, and forever haunting our collective psyche. Chapter 6. The Court of Blood. Within the blood-soaked walls of Vlad's court, a grotesque ballet unfolded, a dance of death, power, and madness. Vlad's court was no ordinary gathering. It was a macabre theater, where life and death pirouetted in crimson splendor. The torches flickered, casting elongated shadows on the stone floor. Boyars, nobles who dared tread this unholy ground, bowed low, their eyes avoiding the impaled corpses lining the courtyard. Each stake bore a twisted testament to Vlad's wrath, traitors, rivals, and those who dared question his dominion. Their bodies sagged, skewered like grotesque marionettes, their screams silenced by the cruel geometry of iron. Vlad sat upon his throne, an ebony monolith, its arms adorned with serpents carved in agony. His gaze held the weight of centuries, pupils dilated like a predator's. His gaunt face bore the scars of countless battles, and his hands, the hands that had wielded swords and daggers, now gripped the armrests with a quiet intensity. His crimson robe pulled around him, a macabre sea of authority. The courtiers whispered among themselves, their breaths shallow. Some spoke of the roses, the blood-red roses that adorned the hall. Each petal, they said, held a secret, a drop of lifeblood from the damned. To touch them was to invite madness or worse, a communion with the spirits that haunted these cursed halls. And so, the court moved with a stifled reverence, as if the very air conspired against them. But it was the feast that chilled their souls, the blood feast. On moonless nights, the banquet hall transformed. Tables groaned under the weight of exotic meats, venison, boar, and fowl, but it was the centerpiece that drew their horrified gaze. A massive silver platter, polished to a mirror sheen, held the crimson nectar, human blood. Vlad dipped his bread into it, savoring the metallic tang, while his courtiers feigned appetite, their eyes darting to the impaled figures beyond the stained glass windows. And as the candles guttered, Vlad would rise, his voice echoing through the hall. He spoke of destiny, of the ancient pact that bound him to these lands. His eyes glinted with madness or prophecy, who could tell? The boyars listened, their hearts pounding, wondering if they were mere spectators or unwitting participants in a grander, bloodier drama. Chapter 7. The Dark Arts. Beyond the court, whispers wove through the castle like tendrils of smoke. Vlad's dalliance with the occult was no secret. Alchemists and sorcerers crept through hidden passages, seeking his favor. They promised power beyond mortal ken, elixirs that could turn flesh to stone, summon storms, or grant visions of distant realms. Vlad entertained them, his eyes gleaming with hunger. In the candlelit chambers, they brewed concoctions, potions that tasted of decay and forbidden knowledge. Some claimed he communed with the spirits of the forest, striking unholy bargains beneath the gnarled oaks. The Book of Shadows, an ancient grimoire bound in human skin, rested on his desk. Its pages whispered secrets, incantations to bind enemies, curses to wither crops, and rites to pierce the veil between worlds. Vlad traced the sigils with ink mixed from crushed beetles and the tears of lost souls. His courtiers wondered if he sought immortality or damnation, perhaps both. And then there were the mirrors, obsidian mirrors that adorned his chambers. Their reflections held more than mere vanity. Some said they glimpsed other realms, the underworld, where shades wandered, or the future, where empires crumbled. Vlad would stand before them, his eyes hollow, and whisper incantations. Did he see his own demise? Or did he peer into the abyss, seeking answers to questions only gods dared ask? And so, the court of blood and the dark arts entwined, a symphony of horror played out in the shadowed corridors. The real Dracula, Vlad the Impaler, was no mere mortal ruler. His courtiers trembled, torn between awe and terror, wondering if they served a king or a malevolent force beyond reckoning. Chapter 8: The Blood-Red Roses. Vlad's cruelty knew no bounds. He reveled in psychological torment. Once, he invited the boyars to a feast. As they dined, he ordered their hats nailed to their heads. Why? To remind them of their place, beneath his boot. And the roses, the blood-red roses that adorned his halls, each petal held a secret. Some whispered they were stained with the lifeblood of his enemies. Chapter 9: The Mythic Veil. But let us not forget the mythic Dracula, the vampire lord who stalked the night, seeking the nectar of life. Was Vlad cursed? Did he drink blood to sustain his immortality? Or was this a tale spun by frightened peasants, their minds fertile soil for legends? Perhaps the truth lies in the grey spaces, where history blurs into folklore. Chapter 10: The Final Act. In 1476, Vlad's reign met its gruesome end. Betrayed, imprisoned, and facing execution, he stared into the abyss. Did he regret his choices? Did he glimpse eternity? We may never know. His body vanished, leaving behind a legacy that transcends mortality. The castle walls still echo with his laughter, or perhaps it's the wind, whispering secrets. Vlad the Impaler, warrior, monster, enigma, stands at the crossroads of our fascination. Remember, history is a palimpsest, written and rewritten by each generation. As you walk away, ask yourself, what shadows linger in your own bloodline?